So Adobe Lightroom, and specifically Lightroom Classic, is the program that's used by most photographers who are interested in kind of going a little farther in their photography, or who have a lot of photographs and need a good system for organizing them. When Adobe started out with its first photo program, Photoshop, which I'm sure you've all heard of, that really launched digital photography in the late 1990s. So used to 2000s now. I can't think back beyond that. In the late 1990s, the camera manufacturers began making the actual sensor capture available to photographers, and Lightroom is a result of that. So when you hear people talking about shooting in RAW is just a description for the various film manufacturers' sensor reading. JPEGs still work. Lightroom works with JPEGs. But the reason that I use this program is that it's really opened up my ability to not only do really interesting work in my photography, but it's a lot faster, a lot faster. And Lightroom includes both really sophisticated organizational tools and also really sophisticated tools for enhancing your photographs. And my approach to enhancing is to take the capture that the camera gave us, which is not the same as what your eye saw, and I try to get back to what I saw in that scene and to emphasize whatever kind of my point of focus, the idea that I had behind shooting making that shot. So let me begin with this photo, which has an interesting story. I shot it back in 2011, and it sat in my Lightroom catalog for that time, and I had just gone right past it after I'd shot it, didn't think it looked like much. And then one day I was looking for photographs again and thought, well, maybe I'll just see what I can do with this photograph. And I'm not going to go through all those steps, but what I simply did was to click the auto button, and I realized for the first time that there was a fog bow. I don't know if you can see this very faint fog bow here. And so then I started working on it. And one of the first things I did was to straighten it out. By the way, I've set my computer up so that when I click on something, I'm going to click on this again, you'll see a little red dot. You see the little red dot in the upper right-hand corner? And when I need to emphasize something, I can put a little circle around it. You're also going to see the keystrokes that I hit. So later on, if you're looking in the video and you're trying to figure out what I did, and I guess I should explain that, we're going to put the video of this session up on YouTube where you can go back and check it again. So anyway, so I'm going to click the crop tool, and there's another little tool inside that lets me just draw a line along the horizon and have the crop automatically adjust for that. And that looks pretty good. So I'm just going to click done down here. And now that did I get it straight? Let's maybe give it one little nudge. Now I am going to try something called dehaze. So on the right-hand side, you'll see a bunch of sliders. The ones in the tone and the presence are mostly focused on the tonality of the photograph. In other words, its lightness and darkness and the contrast. One of the sliders is called dehaze, and it's designed for exactly situations like this. So as I increase it, now all of a sudden I can see that fog bow. And I'm kind of liking that, but I'm seeing a lot of dust spots. So let's go fix those. So I am going to, I've got a little circle here. I'm going to make it a little bigger. And I'm just going to go click wherever I see a dust spot. And Lightroom is going to find a spot that it can use to fill in. And so now the dust spots are gone. Now, I kind of like to me, the front is a little too bright compared to the back. And so I'm going to go into a tool that allows me to make local adjustments. So everything I've been doing up until now were changes that affect the whole photograph. This lets me make changes in certain parts of the photograph. And I am going to click Radial Gradient, which allows me to put in a feathered, you see how it's solid in the middle and then feathers out to the outside edges, a feathered adjustment. But I can now flip that. And so now I have this little circle where I can make everything around that fog bow change. And let's maybe pull this out a little bit so that we actually match the arc of the fog bow. There we go. And now I'm going to make everything around it a little darker. And so this is kind of bringing the focus into the middle, and it's also emphasizing the edge of that fog bow. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add another adjustment, and this is going to be a brush. And I'm going to make this a big brush. And you'll see that the brush has two circles. The inside circle is 100%, and the outside circle is where it feathers down to 0. And a soft brush is nice for making adjustments where it's hard to see where the adjustment happened. And now I'm going to add texture to the grass just to make it a little sharper. I don't know, is that overdoing it? That looks okay. By the way, as we go along here, please feel free to unmute and ask me a question anytime. I will say if it's going to be a long one to answer, I might come back to it at the end. And there'll also be a question and answer period at the end, so you can ask questions then if you like. So I'm going to say done there. Let's switch to a different photograph. And this is a photograph of my wife in front of the Castle San Angelo in Rome. And I'm feeling like the background here is competing with the picture of her. So, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit auto, which I think is going to improve. Adobe has done a lot of work with artificial intelligence, and the auto button used to be useless. Now I consider it such a good starting point that I apply it to all my photographs. I don't necessarily, I just consider it a starting point. Whatever I see here, I might change. In this case, overall, it looks okay, but I want to make that background darker. So I'm going to click the masking button. That's what they call that thing. And I am going to select the subject. And now it's selecting my wife. And I'm going to click the invert button to make it select everything else. And I am going to darken everything else. Interesting how it made my wife look brighter, isn't it? Let's just do well, maybe that's just that's not an optical illusion, but it's interesting. Now, I want to add another mask, and this time I'm going to work on the sky. And Lightroom has an automatic selection for the sky. People used to spend a good amount of time figuring out how to select skies, and now it's really easy. And I am going to overlay this with another selection, which is linear gradient. So it starts at 100% at the top and it feathers down to the bottom, and you can see where it feathers. And the reason I'm doing this is that typically skies, now it's not going to let me change it. I'm going to escape out of that and do it again. Let's see, where were we? Yeah, linear gradient. Oh, there it is. I'm gonna intersect again with a linear gradient. Intersection simply means that the combination of the two, they each restrict each other. So the linear gradient keeps the sky mask from being 100% all the way down to the skyline. So now I am going to maybe reduce the exposure a little. Let's make sure we're in the right mask. Well, what I mainly want to do is I'm going to add some clarity to make the sky have more interest. And I want to make the sky a little darker. Yeah, no, too much. One of the nice things about Lightroom is that it's just very easy to change your mind and go back and do everything all over again. So maybe I'm going to add contrast. Yeah, it's much softer. And the sky might be a little too dark. Maybe I'll get rid of the clarity. There you go. I think that's better. And let me show you. So one of the other nice things about Lightroom is that it's really easy to compare. First of all, where you started and where you got to. So I'm going to hit the tab key to get rid of the panels on the side. And I'm going to show you a before and after on this. So I think this did a pretty good job of bringing my wife out as the kind of the focus of this subject. Lightroom also allows us to, let me get out of before and after. And down there. It also allows us to compare photographs. So this is a photograph that I worked on some more. And I actually took it over to Photoshop. And in this one, I worked on bringing out the dimensionality in my wife's face. And you can see, we zoom in here. See the difference, maybe a few too many wrinkles. Go back and work on that. Anyway, let's zoom back out and let's move on to the next one. So this is a shot I took in Vermont a couple of years ago. And here I'm going to start again by hitting the auto button, which does a really nice job of making the foreground look good. Sky looks a little blown out though. So let's work on the sky. So I'm going to select the sky and I am going to add a gradient to it. And I'm going to pull that down so that the light area is right at the bottom. And let's try exposure. That might be enough. I'm going to try dehaze a little bit, see what that does. Yeah, I like that. Now you'll notice I've got some dust spots up here in the corner. And if I want to get rid of these, I'm just going to hit my dust spot tool. And let me make my brush. Delete that one. I don't know what it's doing there. Well, it almost got the best dust spot. We're not going to spend too much time thinking about this one. So close enough for today. I'm going to zoom back out. The sky looks pretty good. But let's work on that middle area behind the bright trees and the area below the sky. So I am going to add another mask, and this time I'm going to select the sky again. But I'm going to click the invert button again so that I can work on everything but the sky. And then I am going to subtract using a brush this area in the front, in the foreground where the bright trees are, because I don't need to fix that. And I am going to use dehaze to make these mountains a little. Do I want to brighten it up? No, actually, I might want to darken it. And let's try, is that too much dehaze? It's making it really blue. So I'm going to use the yellow slider to, there we go. That feels more natural, which is what I always look for, maybe just a hair less yellow. There we go. Okay, now I'd like to work on those, the highlights of the hills. So I'm going to create a new mask with a brush, and I'm going to make this brush really small. And I'm just going to come down and I'm going to paint the tops of these ridges. And I am just going to bring the highlights up. So even though my brush strokes look really sloppy, I'm only affecting the highlight areas, and you would have trouble seeing. There we go. So let's see what before and after looks like here. Definitely an improvement. And there's more we could do here, but this is just to give you an idea of what's possible. All right, let's move to another photograph here. And this one, I want to show you some of the adjustments you can make to handle geometry when you're working on buildings, taking photographs of buildings. So there's a tool here that lets me put horizontal and vertical lines that then causes the photograph to adjust its geometry. So I am going to click right here, and the little thumbnail is letting me click in a more exact spot. And then I'm just going to drag down the side of the building. Let me find the right spot there, right about there, I think. There's one. And let's click here. And we need at least two for each dimension. So that straightened it out quite a bit. And now I'm going to click right along the top of this area. And I am going to click along the bottom of the cathedral. And there we go. So I can also do before and after, just cycling through. So here's before and here's after. And I really love this transform tool. I mean, it doesn't always work, but I would say it works 90% of the time. Okay, now I'm going to change gears and move over into how we organize photos in Lightroom. And Lightroom has different modules, and you can see these modules at the top. So we've been in Develop, which is where we're able to make changes to the way the photograph looks. And now I'm going to click Library to go to the section where I'm actually organizing my photos. So let me show you what it looks like to import from a camera. So I've put my camera card in a card reader. I don't know if you can see my video, but there it is. And I'm going to click Import over here in the lower left corner. And Lightroom is going to open it up since I already have the card in there, it is going to look for that card. And let's let Lightroom think here for a minute. This only happens in demos, by the way. I woke up this morning and my wife announced that she had COVID, so I may be soon to follow her, but glad we got this demonstration in. Well, this isn't encouraging. Good. While that's going on, I am going to take a picture with my phone using the Lightroom app. And I'm going to demonstrate a different kind of importing here in a second. So bear with me for a moment, just setting something on my phone. So let's see, it's not recognizing my camera card, so I'm going to eject that and put it back in. Let's see if it sees it now. There we go. So this is my camera card. There were some photographs on there that had already been imported. And so because I have in the upper left-hand corner, I've selected don't import suspected duplicates. Lightroom is not going to let me import the ones that I've already imported. And, you know, it's not uncommon to forget to erase the stuff that you've already imported. So I always keep this checked. So in this case, I'm just going to say, yeah, please import them. And I am going to select where I want them to go. By the way, I always, let me see, I'm going to have to move the zoom tool here. So I always copy, because if something goes wrong, you can always do the import again. And in this case, I'm going to put them, I organize my photos by the year that I, you know, when I did the shoot. And in this case, I'm going to have Lightroom create a new folder. And I'm just going to say, and I use the date naming method because it just makes it easier for me to find things. So this is 10-08, and we'll call it Hill Center. And I'm just going to click import. And what Lightroom is doing is it's copying the files from my card to the folder that I asked it to copy it to. And it's making, and it's creating a preview of that photo using Lightroom. Lightroom doesn't make any changes to your photographs. It just copies the photograph, and then the program itself controls what the photograph looks like in Lightroom. If I opened that file in another editing program, it wouldn't see any changes that I'd made in Lightroom. The benefit of that is that your originals are always the same. You can make multiple copies of a photograph in Lightroom without actually making another copy of the photograph, which gives you a tremendous amount of flexibility. For example, with this photograph here, I could say, you know, I really want that to be a square. I'm going to create a virtual copy. And now I'm just going to go back to develop, and I'm going to crop it. And I'm going to come over here and select a 1-to-1 ratio. And boom, I've got a square photo. But if we come back to my grid, I've got two versions of this photo. The original doesn't change. It's just that I have two virtual copies of this photograph in my Lightroom. And there are all kinds of reasons for making virtual copies. I'm not going to get into them here, but it's just know that it gives you a lot of flexibility. One of the other nice things about Lightroom is that Adobe has two Lightrooms. One of them is desktop computer-based version, Lightroom Classic. This is the original Lightroom. They created a second Lightroom that's app-based. So I have, and by the way, they both come together. If you buy Lightroom Classic, you get the app-based Lightroom. So I have Lightroom on my phone, and I've set Lightroom on my phone so that it automatically syncs with my computer. And let's see, here is the photograph that I just took a minute ago. So this photograph went from my phone up to the Adobe Cloud, and I'll double click on it so you can see Hill Center, up to the Adobe Cloud, and then it synced the photo back down to my desktop in the time since we started talking about this, which is pretty handy. I really love that part of the ecosystem because, all of us are taking a lot of photos on our phone these days, and why not have it be part of Lightroom? Let's see. So Lightroom has two methods of organizing. One is where the folder that you've put your original in. So there's the folders panel here. I'm going to hide this navigator here so you can see a little bit more of what I'm showing you. And if I go to Finder and I go to where are we? Pictures, and then select photos. I put everything in a photos folder because my pictures folder seems to get junked up with all sorts of stuff. Now I've got stuff organized by year, and within this year I have Hill Center. So you can see that this folder structure is the exact same as what I see in Lightroom over here. So I had pictures, photos, 2022, and then down here to the 5 photos that I selected from that I imported into the Hill Center folder. Now, there's another side of Lightroom, which is Lightroom gives you a way to work with your photos in lots of different ways. So I don't, in the old world of Photoshop, or any other application for that matter, if you wanted to collect all the pictures of your family, you'd have to make copies of them and put them in a family folder. And if some of the pictures also happen to have flowers of them, you might want to make a copy of that and put it in your flowers folder. In Lightroom, you don't have to do any of that. I can take any photograph and put it in a collection, which is like a playlist. I can put it in a collection, and then I could later put it in another collection, and there's just one photograph that's being organized across all these different ways. So let me just demonstrate what I'm talking about. Let's see. I'm going to close that up. I'm down in my collections. Let me highlight this so you can see it. I'm in my collections folder, and I've created a folder of collections for this class. So the first thing I did was to create a folder for the photographs I was going to work on in the development module, which you just saw. So I've also created a collection here of photographs that I've shot around my neighborhood when I was just walking around. I am going to remove all these photos. Let's see, why is it not letting me remove them? Bear with me for a moment. Maybe it needs to be here. Remove from collection. So now there's nothing in this collection. Then I'm going to come back up to my folder of stuff that I've shot walking around the neighborhood when I'm taking my afternoon walks. And where is that? That is not under home. It's under, it's around home. Okay. So here are photographs I've shot around the Bishop's Garden. And I am going to select them all, Command A, and I'm going to come back down to my neighborhood collection and I'm going to drag them right in there. So those photographs haven't moved, they've just been added to a collection. And I'm going to remove all of these. I was practicing this last night and didn't reset my practice area. So in the neighborhood collection, and by the way, I could come back up here to 38th Street, that's where I live. I'm going to hit Command A, and I'm going to drag all those photographs down into the neighborhood. So this is an important bit of power in Lightroom. I can, if I've been to the same, I have one student who goes to the same vacation place every year, and they wanted to have all of their photographs that they'd shot at this vacation place in the same place, and they were trying to figure out how to work that in folders. And I said, leave the photographs where they are now, which is organized by year, and we'll just move them into one big collection, which will cross all the years. So I've just moved all this, I moved photographs from two collections into my neighborhood folder. And this can turn into a really nice workflow, because now I'm going to go through here and I'm just going to pick some photographs, and I'm actually going to add a flag to them. I'm going to hit the P key for pick. So I've added a pick to this photograph right here, and I'm going to add a pick to that photograph. And let's come on down here. Here's one. There's a nice one. Now I can use those flags to filter what I'm looking at. So I'm going to click right down here. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a filter available where I can pick the pick flag. And now I'm only going to see the photographs that I just went through and chose. So let's say I've been to a family gathering and I've shot 20 photographs. There's 3 or 4 of them that I'd like to share. I can just go through, use the pick flag to quickly select the ones that I want. I can filter to get just those photographs. And at this point, I could either export them for email or do anything else I want to do. In this case, I'm actually going to create another collection, and I'm going to call it Neighborhood Picks. And I've just dragged these photographs in there. I'm going to get rid of the filter over here, so they're not all highlighted anymore. And now I can do a number of different things with this collection. And I'm going to use this collection as a way to show you some of the other things that some of the other modules. But before that, I want to show you another method, which is that Lightroom also allows you to use keywords and other metadata of the photo. Metadata might be information that comes from your camera, like what camera you use, what lens it used, what date you shot the photograph. But it can also be include keywords. And let's look at the keywords for this photograph. So I'm going to close Quick Develop, open up keywording. And as you can see, I've added Athens, Greece, and Penny, my wife's name, to this photograph. And the Penny one I added later, but Athens and Greece I added when I imported the photograph. So you can add keywords to a whole group of photographs that you import. And when I travel, typically I add the country and the city name, And that allows me to later on, even though I might have these photographs spread across multiple folders, I can create one collection that has everything by creating a smart collection. And the filter for this is like a saved search. The filter is that the keywords contains grease. So I'm going to save that. Now I'm going to copy this collection. And I've gone through this collection and added stars to the photographs that I like. And I am going to create a new collection. And we're going to edit this one. Pardon me. And I'm going to add another criteria, which is that the rating is greater than or equal to 3 stars. And now I've narrowed my 1,500 photographs down to 352. And I will probably go through these 3-star photographs and select. I'm going to get the selection down to about 100 for a book that I'm going to make on the trip, this trip. So let me show you how I would do that. So I'm going to go to our neighborhood picks book. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to show you one little thing just to get it out of the way. When you shoot with an iPhone, at least any iPhone past, I think, iPhone 6, it records the geo coordinates of where you shot the photo. So if I look down in my metadata, I can find here is the latitude and longitude of where I shot this photo. Well, Lightroom can use that information. Let's go ahead and select all the photographs in here. And as it happens, most of these photographs were shot with my iPhone, so it'll do something. If it's a photograph shot by your camera, you won't have the geocodes because most cameras are not set up to import that. There are ways to deal with that. I won't get into them here, but if you really want to geocode everything, it's possible to do that. Anyway, I'm going to click the map. I've selected everything now, all 155 photographs, and I'm going to hit the map tool. And it's actually going to show me a map showing me where all these photographs were taken. And if I click, let's see, I'm going to click right here. It'll actually show me the photographs and I can click through them, which is kind of fun. I mainly use it when I'm on trips. So every location that we go to where I'm taking photographs, actually, let me back out of here and let's just look at Greece. Now, this is not going to have as many because I was shooting with another camera most of the time, but let's see what it looks like. Athens Airport. Okay, we're going to back out just a little bit. So now you can see the places that we went to on the trip. So if I'm doing a book, it could help me remember where a particular photograph was taken. I'll be honest, I do not use this a lot, but I think it's sort of a nifty feature. So let's go back to our small neighborhood group. So I could also make a slideshow of this group, and I can page through these. If I actually play the slideshow, it'll go full screen, and you can either have it automatically go forward, or you can have it go forward whenever you click. And this is handy for maybe a situation where you have a party and you want to put up a slideshow that automatically rotates. You can turn the slideshow into an MP4 that plays like a video. So it's a nice little tool. book is something that I think is a great feature of Lightroom. Bear with me while we do this. So I am going to clear this layout, and I am going to import all these photos, and I am just going to lay them out on their own pages. But if I'm not sure I like these layouts, so let me just zoom in on one, and I am going to add a page, and I'm going to change the page layout to 2 photos. And I have a choice of which one, so I'm going to pick that one. Now let's zoom back out to the full book. And let's put in this one and this one, and zoom into the 2-page layout. And I am going to select zoom photo to fill and zoom photo to fill. And now I can play around with this a little bit. But you get the idea. Oh, one thing not to be forgotten is I can also change the background. Let's see here. I am going to select the background color, and it holds up a color swatch here. But if I click and hold down, I can bring the thermometer out into the photograph and pick any any color that I can find. I think that's a little lurid. Let's go for something relaxing. Let's go for, there you go. Now this is doing it on every page. And so if I don't want that, I just click apply background globally. And now I can go to this page, and I'm just gonna click white to fix that. Anyway, the beauty of the Lightroom book module is that they've done an integration with Blurb, who you may have heard of. They do photo books. So up here, when I'm done, I'm not going to change any of these settings, but I can make this a Blurb photo book, and I have a choice of different layouts. I'm just going to choose standard landscape. I can make it a hardcover with a dust jacket, or I can make it a hardcover with just an image wrap on it. And when I'm done, I can print this book, and it tells me what it's going to cost for what is that, $36.99, which does not include shipping. But anyway, this can be a great way to do a one-off book. If you decide you want multiples, they give you a volume discount. And if you decide to do this, Blurb will often give you 20% off on your first book. So anyway, that's a lovely little feature of Lightroom. And by the way, I can create a saved book here, and I'm just going to call it Neighborhood. And then here's the book. It's going to remember all these photographs and what your layout was. So that's the book module. Now let's go on to the print module. There are a couple nice things. Lightroom used to be everyone printed out of Photoshop because there were things you could do in Photoshop that were hard to do in other programs. One of the biggest things was how much sharpening to apply to the print, because the sharpening that you apply to an 8x10 would be very different from the sharpening you would apply to a 16x20. 16x20 is going to be viewed from farther away, so you don't need the kind of tiny detail that you might want if someone is 6 inches away from the photograph. And the nice thing about Lightroom is that it automatically adjusts for the size of the paper that you're using. So I'm not going to go through all of the different things that you can, the different settings here. But the main thing to understand is that you get a lot of layout flexibility. So I can change my margins. I can make them smaller, larger, whatever. I can also do multiple layouts. So let's do this one. So here I am going to add photographs to this montage. And now I can print this out. And you can change this layout any way you want. So lots and lots of flexibility. If I'm in the middle of this and I go, you know, I need to make a change to this tulip photo, I'm just going to go back to develop, and I am going to add a radial gradient to the top. Whoops, not a radial gradient. I am going to add a linear gradient just to darken it up a little bit. Not much. And now let's go back to print. Maybe I think I'm working on the wrong one. Let's go back and work on this one. Yeah, this is the one that needs it. So I'm just going to bring it in from a corner here because that's where the light's oriented from. And I'm just going to bring that down. Now I'm focused on the photographs in the middle, on the flowers in the middle. And let's come back up here and maybe see, here's where auto didn't work. So I'm gonna just brighten this back up again. There. Now we can go back to our print. Looking good. So that is the pretty thorough tour of Lightroom. Let me tell you, I'm going to tell you one more thing about the Adobe products, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. So let me go back to my collection over here. So here's one bit of confusion you should be aware of, which is that Adobe is pushing their app-based product pretty hard. So if you go to the Adobe site now, you will actually have a hard time finding Lightroom Classic. I would suggest that you just search for the Adobe Photography Plan 20 gigabyte. I'll also, I guess, could I put it in the chat as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'll add it to the chat before we're done. I'll show you what the page looks like anyway. So the page you want to get to is this one. Now, why this one? Oh, actually, it's not this one. Oh, they messed me up. Don't worry, I'll show you. I tell you what, I'll put the Haviland's going to do a follow-up email, right, Haviland? And I'll give her the link to put in that.
Yeah, that's perfect.
The way that I find it is I shop for Adobe Lightroom Classic 20 gigabyte. And I believe that this is the right one. No, it's saying 1 terabyte. They really want to sell that app-based Lightroom. Let me go back to it's out there. Let's try. There's the link. So you want the one that's $9.99. So why this one? Well, if you buy the app one, app-based one, it's going to be $9.99 a month. They're going to give you 100 gigabytes of cloud storage. if you buy the 20 gigabyte Adobe, plan that includes Lightroom Classic, you get the app-based one, and you also get Photoshop. So for $9.99 a month, you get 3 programs instead of 1, and you only get 20 gigabytes of storage, but there's an easy way to avoid running out of storage. And if anyone's interested, I'm happy to explain it to you. It would take too long to explain here, but it's not hard. So, by far and away, the best deal that Adobe has is the $9.99 plan. And I apologize on behalf of Adobe. Their programmers do a great job. Their marketing people are complete idiots. But somebody told them that their bonuses are probably dependent on selling more of the app-based program. And so the website has become impossible to navigate as a result of that. Anyway, so why don't we, I'm going to put up a slide here showing my contact info. If you've got questions about the class or, want to know just a question about the presentation, you can reach out to me at alec.dan@verizon.net. And you can also see my photography at my website, alecdanarts.com. But does anyone have any questions? Be sure to unmute yourself if you want to talk.
Hi, thank you. That was a great presentation. Yeah, I had a couple of quick questions. What about if you don't have a photo printer? You were sort of demonstrating how to print something. Is there sort of an easy way with Lightroom to send them somewhere to get them printed or store them on a drive or something?
Yes. So I'll just show you quickly. Let me get back to my neighborhood photographs. So let's just say I want to send all these photographs to a company to have them printed, which is a very reasonable choice. A good photo printer can cost you $500 or more. And I would say until you get your, to the point where you absolutely have to have one in your house, send them to a service bureau. Chrome, who's a local company, is a good one. And if you're interested in it, the nice thing about Chrome is that you can go in there and talk to them if you've got a question. But there are several others, and send me an email and I'll send you some choices. And it's not that expensive. So in fact, there are a couple of service bureaus now that will print your print on aluminum. And believe me, they look gorgeous. And for like, you can get a 16 by 20 print that's on aluminum that has something that will lift it out from the wall, that you will also be like have hanging hardware on it, where you could literally just put up a nail on the wall and hang it and be done. And those are great, especially for bathrooms where you know that the steam is going to possibly to destroy the print. I've got a couple of my favorites in there in my bathroom, and it's a joy to get up every morning and see something beautiful. So if I were going to send photographs out, I'm going to highlight all these photographs. I'm going to click export, and export gives me a lot of choices. The first choice is, where do I want to send it? And I typically, I choose this option to choose a folder later, just rather than have to change this every time. I leave it at, the way Lightroom works is that the settings from the last time you exported are the ones that you'll see the next time. So I leave it here because I don't need to fuss with it. I could rename the photo if I wanted to. So if I want to give, if I have a title for the photo, I could actually export it with the title as the file name. I don't have to go look it up, type it in. It just lets me change it. So I am going to, if I'm sending something to a service bureau, it's going to be a JPEG photo. I'm actually going to make it Adobe Rgb. So Srgb is the original color space that was agreed on by Apple, Hewlett-Packard, several companies, Microsoft, back in the early 90s when we went from having proprietary printing systems where it was, you handed your file off to someone and something came out the other end. Now all of a sudden people had their own machines and they had their own, their monitor might be from a different company. So the manufacturers all had to come up with a common standard that would of how to represent color. That's Srgb. 10 years later, Adobe came up with Adobe Rgb because people were starting to print on their own printers. And Adobe Rgb has more colors than Srgb. So if you're going to send something to a printer, send it to them in Adobe Rgb, unless they tell you, I mean, they may have their own specs, and I would go with whatever their specs are. You can also choose how big to make the photo. And you have the choice of longest edge, choosing width or height. There are lots of options here in terms of how you want to export stuff. I'm currently reworking my website, and my default has always been just the longest edge because most of my photographs are horizontal. Well, I had one that was the vertical, and when I went in to look at it on the web page, the longest edge, I made the long edge 800 pixels long, and the thing, I couldn't see it on the screen because it was so long. Anyway, I mean, you're going to be able to see these after you export them. And I also make sure that my quality, I set the quality around 75, which is a lot of testing's been done. There's not much gain going past 75, and you're increasing the size of the photograph. So now I'm going to export this photograph, and I actually keep a link to my export folder here in my sidebar, and I'm just going to create a new folder and call it Hill Center Neighborhood. And I'm going to click open, and in the upper left-hand corner, I don't know if you saw that, it was pretty fast. It just exported those files. And so let's go to export, Hill Center Neighborhood, and here they all are. I got to move the zoom thing. And let me change this to gallery. So now we can see what I've exported. It's not a bad idea to look at your exports after you go, because sometimes you'll decide that the change from the Lightroom color space to the Adobe or Srgb made a change in the photograph that you don't like, and so you can go back and adjust. And one of the cool things about Lightroom, I'm just gonna ignore that, is I can come in here and let's pick one that kind of looks not so great. Lightroom lets you proof what things will look like when they're exported. So I'm going to click, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to click, am I in develop? Bear with me here. This zoom bar at the top seems to be in my way wherever I go. I got to be in develop. There we go. I'm going to click soft proofing. Soft proofing means I'm using the software to get an idea of what it's going to look like. And so this is what our Srgb looks like, and this is what Adobe Rgb looks like. And I honestly can't see any difference. So no harm done there. And I could make virtual copies and compare the two if I wanted to try to figure out why it wasn't looking as good as I thought it should. I know that's maybe a little more than what you asked for, but
Well, yeah, and no, that's great. But then how do you actually get the file to the printer?
so some printers will have a web page that you go to upload them to.
Ah, okay.
I use a service called WeTransfer, which is free.
Mm-hmm.
So I come here and they say, I'm going to agree to the terms and I'm going to log in so I don't have to go through two-factor authentication. So it's just, pardon me. So I just click, I want to upload files. I go to export Hill Center neighborhood, select them all, open, and now I just put in the email I want to send them to, and boom, they're gone.
Great.
And you can send for free, you can send up to 2 gigabytes of photos a day, which is, I can think of only one occasion when I was trying to send a huge video that was too big. So WeTransfer.com.
Great.
You can look at the size of the files also. Let's change our view to list. So I'm going to guess, actually, I'm just going to go back and I'm going to go to Hill Center and I am going to click get info and it's going to tell me the total size. And it looks like it's 2.5 megabytes. So you could email that. Generally 6 megabytes or below is fine. Even some systems are taking 10 now. I haven't really kept track of it. Any other questions?
I have a quick one. I guess you can tell Lightroom, I haven't done that yet, tell where to save your pictures in a hard drive. For instance, if you want to save it in an external hard drive or some special place,
yes,
you can tell that, right?
Yes. So I have some photographs. I'm just going to close up some years here so you can see what I'm talking about. So I have the last 8 years on my computer. This is the new one that I bought last year, and I splurged and put 4 terabytes of disk space on it. Before that, I was only able to keep a couple of years on my computer when I had 1 terabyte. So I have an external hard drive. I call it Travel. And it's got, I've got 41,000 photographs on my hard drive, and I have 69,000 photographs on my external hard drive, and I could have multiple hard drives. So Lightroom can handle, any setup that you have as far as disk space goes.
And this would be part of what you will teach us if we register in the course, right? How to store, where to store, how to direct Lightroom to different.
Yes. I spend a lot of time helping people get their drives organized.
Yeah, we have to start there.
Yeah. And, if we need extra time on the side, I'm happy to take the time with you to help you get it together. I have one of my students who's from Nepal and not a super familiar with all the details of working on computers. And he had things spread all around, and we just took half an hour and I did it for him. One of the nice things about Zoom is I can set it up so that I can operate your computer.
Yes.
I don't do anything that you don't, I say, is it okay if I do this? And then I do it. Because sometimes it's faster. I've done it a lot. So, I have no problem helping people. Also, there is a plugin for Lightroom that allows you to find duplicates.
Oh, great.
And so if you've got a lot of duplicates, and believe it or not, I have plenty myself. Not sure how they got in there, but they're there. And, it's one of those, when there's a snowy day in the winter, maybe I'll tackle that one. But if you have duplicates, and I had one student who had been working in Picasa, and when Google said we're not going to run Picasa anymore, he exported his Picasa photographs and imported them into Lightroom 5 times. So he had 5 sets of duplicates in there, and we managed to figure out how to clean that out.
So is that plugin part of Lightroom, or do you have to?
That one I think costs 15 pounds or something like that. It's not very expensive.
Okay, and that will also be part of the class.
Yes, I could make it that. If you had that need, I'd be happy to show you how to use it.
Yeah. My wife has a lot of duplicates, so we need to clean them.
That's okay. That's okay. I mean, you have to remember that for all intents and purposes, this little world of Lightroom is only 20 years old, if that, maybe 15. I started in 2007.
Mhm.
And it's a lot. It's kind of like having a Swiss Army knife with 100 blades. You want every one of them, but then you also have to learn how to use them. So the great thing about Lightroom is that it's pretty user-friendly. I mean, so much more user-friendly than Photoshop. I use Photoshop too. There are some advanced things you can do in Photoshop that are very difficult or impossible to do in Lightroom. But there's so much you can get done in Lightroom. I would say for photographers using Lightroom, they do 95% of their work in Lightroom.
Yeah.
And maybe only, if you guys just have a couple more minutes, I'll just give you an example of what Photoshop can do for you. So let's see, retouching. Let me see if the photograph I'm looking for is in here.
And Photoshop is also an Adobe product, right?
Yes, you get Photoshop
As part of the package.
Yeah. And the nice thing is that if you work on an image in Photoshop, when you save it, Lightroom automatically brings it in. Bear with me for a moment. I'm just gonna. Well, maybe it's in here. Oh yeah, here it is. So I can open Photoshop right out of Lightroom. This is a picture of my daughter in Italy. 2015, I took the family to Rome, and promptly both children said, "We don't want to hang out with you. We're going to travel on our own." And we said, okay. So Photoshop works in layers. I'm going to create a new layer here. So anything that we do doesn't, I can always get back to my original. And I want to get rid of this light pole here, or rather cable of some kind. And I am going to do edit, content aware fill. And now Photoshop wants to know what it should use to fill with. So I'm going to get rid of things that are not like what I want it to choose from. And let's make this a little smaller and just right there. And now you can actually see a preview over on the right side of what's going to happen, but let's just go ahead and do it. And now I am going to use the healing brush, and I'm going to zoom in and let's make this smaller. And I'm just going to click out here in the water. And then, now why isn't it? Oh, I know. I see. Well, current and below, it should do it. Well, I'm just going to switch it. This never fails when I'm demonstrating something. It just decides that it wants to do its own thing. And later on, I figure out what happened. Well, it's not working there. Let's try working it here. No. One more attempt and then I'm going to bail. I've where is it picking that up from? Let's try up here. Well, it's acting a little flaky, but anyway, you get the point.
So
There's
the
things
point
you
is
can do.
that for things like removing a cable like this, then you might use Photoshop. But for everything that is more basic, you would
Yes,
use Lightroom.
yes.
Got you.
The things that I use Photoshop for are retouching, stuff that I don't want in the scene. I also use it for doing photographs that are like a combination of photographs. So, composites. I don't have one handy to show you, but like if you wanted multiple photographs on one page and you wanted to put some text in there, like for example, I use Photoshop to do my Christmas cards, and then I print them on my printer. So that has both images and text. Also, I use Photoshop to enhance color. There are some subtle things that you can do in Photoshop that way. And also for serious face retouching, Photoshop is a little easier. But 99% of what you're going to want to do, you're going to go a long way in Lightroom before you want to spend time with Photoshop. And the things that you need to learn in Photoshop to do what I just did, we could do in 15 minutes. So, the baby steps in Photoshop are not big. Getting into more sophisticated stuff, there's Photoshop is very powerful. So that means that there's more things to learn in order to use the power. Any other questions?
Yeah, yes, thank you. This has been awesome. So to prepare to take the class, we would need to get our subscription and also load photos. Can you by any chance recommend a card reader? Like because I have a bunch of photos on a camera that I would want to move into Lightroom once I sign up.
Sure. So hold on for a second. And I'm just gonna switch to video and bear with me for a second here. Let me stop sharing. So you should be able to see me. Maybe you're not seeing me. I'm going to switch to.
No, yes,
Yeah, we
we
see
see
you.
you. We see you. We
Okay,
see you.
all right, good. Okay. So I have a Nikon camera,
Mhm.
and it has these thick little discs. Oops. I think these are called XQD cards. I'm having trouble adjusting to the camera because it's backwards. Everything
Yeah,
I
I
do
can
goes
see
the
it.
wrong way. Okay. And then there's something called an SD card.
Yeah, I think that's what I have.
Okay. So look on the side of your computer and see if you've got a slot for your SD card. Because mine does, but Apple has, do you have a Windows or Apple machine?
I have a Windows, it's a Lenovo.
Okay. Does it have a card reader on the side? It's no problem if it doesn't.
Actually, it does. Okay, I didn't even know it was there.
Okay, so that's how you load your
Right.
camera.
Should we wait, if we take the class, should we wait to load the photos so that we're loading them in the right place?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The first class is all about importing.
Oh, okay, great.
And, helping people figure out what their issues are. I'll give you an example. Class I taught recently, one person had been taking photographs forever, but they'd run out of space on their hard drive and it wouldn't allow them to load Lightroom Classic because there was no space. So the first thing we had to do was to move some of his photographs off to his external hard drive. And once we'd done that, then we were able to load them up. And if Lightroom, you can sometimes run into issues where if you move photographs outside of Lightroom will give you like a question mark. I don't know where this file is, but it has a very easy way to go locate that file, and then it just reconnects everything. So Lightroom is full of tools to help you recover from mistakes. And also, it should be noted, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. This is another point worth making. So let's look at one of the photographs that I worked on today. So if I decided that I didn't like what I did here, I'm in develop. Lightroom keeps a history over on the side here, and I can actually go back in history to any point in what I've done on this photo. So you're never in a situation where you can't get back to zero. In Photoshop, there's a lot of stuff that you have to do in what they call it to work in a non-destructive way. In other words, destructive meaning I've made changes to the photograph that if I saved it, I would have lost the original photograph. That never happens in Lightroom. Any other questions?
This has been great. Thank you.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thanks so much, Alec. This was awesome. And thanks everybody for joining. Alec mentioned that I'm going to send a follow-up email, which is true. I'm going to send a follow-up email that has his class in it. And I'll also send a follow-up email with his recommendation with which program to purchase as well. And then that's the class page. Perfect. And I linked that in the chat as well. And then also this recording about the demo will be on our YouTube channel. So you can expect that pretty soon as well.
So sorry, the class starts on the 11th, right? And it goes every Tuesday.
That's right.
Okay, good.
That's right.
Yes,
And you can find my email address on the class page. So if somehow or other, you didn't get an answer that you thought you were going to get, send me an email. I'd be happy to,
And the class
long
is
as-
virtual, right?
Yes. And it's a good thing too, because my wife came down with COVID this morning.
Yeah. Hope she feels better.
Yeah. And my son got it Tuesday, and we got through 2.5 years. So I guess we should just,
count our blessings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it the truth? And sadly, it probably won't be the last time we get it, but I think this thing's going to be around forever.
Yep.
But hopefully, over the years, it gets to be more like the flu, where you get it and it's not the end of the world. I was cutting up a tree on Sunday, and a big piece of wood fell on my foot and ended up in Sibley. And I was talking to the nurse, and I said, "What's that thing on your back?" She said, "Oh, that's my my air pack for when I go into the rooms of COVID patients." And I said, "Are you still getting a lot of patients?" And she said, "Oh yeah."
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And obviously, if they're being hospitalized, it's serious. So I guess so anyway, one of the reasons I like Zoom, there are two reasons I like it. Number one, what I'm teaching is what's on the screen, what you were seeing today. And so honestly, the difference between this and me setting up a projector with a screen is not much, right? Second, you could be anywhere and still be able to take the class, right? So you don't have to worry about rush hour traffic trying to get to the hill. And I don't have to worry about rush hour traffic trying to get to the hill. And third, we record the sessions, and that is worth a lot. But by the way, I should mention that I have probably 20 or 30 Google Docs that I'm just going to kind of quickly show you where they are. Let's just open a new window here and
Alec, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you had mentioned to me that the first half of the class is kind of demo and the second half is more individual hands-on. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. And the reason that I do it that way, I'll just say about my own experience learning Lightroom. I took an introductory class and I probably forgot half of it. And I was stumbling along trying to use Lightroom, and I knew that there were things that I hadn't quite gotten my head around. And I ended up taking like a monthly class with a guy named Elliot Cohen, who still teaches here in DC. And that was good, but Elliot did all the work, and I would get home and I would go, what did he do? And what I decided was that having students actually make the changes to their own photographs would help with retention a lot. And it's a little slower, so we don't get through as many photographs. But my sense is, and I've gotten positive feedback from this approach, that people learn it better. I think that there's room for more education afterward, and I have options for that if you're interested. But in this class, my goal is going to be to help you understand import your photographs, know how you want them organized, start to learn to use collections, work on some photographs so you get a sense of what the tools are. And the beauty of Lightroom is that there's no wrong move. You just try things and see what works. And over time, you learn it. And the more you practice it, the better at it you get. And it's a tool that keeps on giving. If you love your photographs, you're going to love this. It totally changed the way that I worked, and it changed my forward progress markedly. I used to just feel like I was fumbling and not able to, ever get my head around how I was organized. And now I know how to work, and I can work fast. And which means that I'm spending more time doing the parts of it I like, as opposed to parts that I don't like organizing. So I hope you all join the class. I'd love to have you. And if you're having any issues with getting set up in Lightroom, we can certainly sort those out. If you're feeling you're not quite ready for the class and need a little help before the class, I'd be willing to do a private session with you just to get you sorted out. And again, I need to make sure I send you the link to the Lightroom sign up. It's really annoying. It used to be they made it pretty simple. They showed you all the different programs and you could choose the right one. And now there seems like they're trying to hide Lightroom Classic, which is too bad, because that's what 90% of the people use Lightroom are using Lightroom Classic. And by the way, one other little negative on I like the Lightroom app. It has all the developed capabilities that the desktop version does. But what's weird is you can't print from it. And that mystifies me. So I think Lightroom Classic is the one you're going to want. Anyway.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Haviland, thank you for your strength and coming on and
not at all. This was fabulous. So happy that we could make it happen, and thank you. This was fantastic. And I'll be following up, so just send me those links and I'll get them out to everybody shortly.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.